You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast, where we show you how to build, grow, and monetize your online platform. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us again this week. And this week, we're going to talk about, it's actually one of my favorite subjects to talk about because it's something that relates to two areas. It relates to sales copy, which I don't know if that sounds exciting to you or if that sounds boring to you. I actually, at one point, would have thought writing sales copy would have been immensely boring. Now I actually find it fascinating. But what we're about to talk about, it fits in that category, but it also fits with public speaking. And I'm going to show you how both of these kind of go hand in hand. And this metric that I'm going to share with you is something that you might find useful for both. So if you're someone that's a public speaker, you'll find this useful. But if you're someone who also has to create sales copy for your online platform, which most likely you're going to have to create if you're creating products or services that you hope people choose to use, I think you're going to find this beneficial. Now, I mentioned some of my backstory recently on one of our recent podcast episodes, and I'm going to share a tiny bit more again. So again, for the past 25 years, I've been serving as a pastor. And if you're familiar with the weekly responsibilities of a pastor, you're probably aware that the most visible thing a pastor has to do each week is to prepare and preach a sermon. I actually think some people think that's all pastors do. I can assure you it is not all that pastors do. But I know that there are many people who think that that's all that pastors do. But it's one of the most visible, if not the most visible thing that I get to do over the course of any given week. Some pastors preach short sermons. Some preach long sermons. Most weeks, I've looked at it, and I would say an average length most of the time when I'm preaching is right around 45 minutes. So when I'm speaking on Sunday mornings, I usually speak for right around 45, sometimes a tiny bit longer, sometimes a tiny bit less, but it usually averages right around that 45-minute mark. And I have to tell you that after preparing a sermon each week for the past quarter century, for the past 25 years, the process of doing that has actually taught me something about communication that I think can be applied to other spheres as well. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of these details. But I'll tell you what, even before I get into the details, let me start by just telling you a common mistake that I often see repeated among people that are brand new to public speaking. Many speakers fail to communicate to the whole person. Now, what do I mean by the whole person? Well, many speakers fail to communicate to the whole person. What they do is they speak in a way that leans heavily on their own personality or their own learning style, but unfortunately may miss the mark of reaching those that they're trying to reach. Now, again, what do I mean when I say that if a public speaker is speaking, they ought to try to reach the whole person? What am I getting at when I use that phraseology? Well, if you look at how God has designed us, you will see that he gave people intellect, emotions, and will. So just think about those three concepts: intellect, emotions, and will. Every person has that. We all have intellect, we all have emotions, we all have a will, meaning we think, we feel, and we do. Or maybe my favorite way of phrasing this, we have a head, we have a heart, and we have hands. Head, heart, and hands. It's all by design. And I think the best communicators take all three areas of our design. They take it very seriously when they craft their teaching, or when they craft their speaking, or when they craft their sales copy. So when I'm speaking, right, and again, I do this all the time. Every week, multiple times, frankly. But when I'm speaking, I don't want to just communicate to the head, because I feel like when I hear people just communicate to the head, that gets a little boring. Sometimes it gets a little technical, especially if it drags on too long. When I'm speaking, I also don't want to exclusively speak to the heart of a listener, because if someone only speaks to the heart, that can get a little bit shallow if it isn't balanced by information and action. And likewise, I don't think speaking to the hands would make a whole lot of sense without speaking to the head and the heart first. So these things have to be balanced. So every time I'm speaking, I try to speak to the head, the heart, and the hands, or the intellect, the emotions, and the will, in a balanced way. I want to teach helpful information. I want to help the listener feel what I'm talking about by using personal examples and stories. And that I want to inspire them to take action on what they've just heard. And I'll tell you what, the balanced philosophy that I use when I'm speaking of trying to hit the head, the heart, and the hands, it also helps when you're attempting to market a product or when you're attempting to market a service to your audience. To market those things, you're going to have to write sales copy. And if you're writing sales copy, so if you're writing something that you hope someone will read and feel compelled to utilize what you've created, you're going to have to make sure that there's something in that sales copy to think about, something in that sales copy to feel, and something in that sales copy to actually act upon. And I'm going to give you an example of how I put this into practice, not just in theory, but actually in reality earlier today. And some of our members club that are live on the call here with me, they actually had the opportunity to see this earlier when I posted this on social media. Now, there are a bunch of us in our group who are in the process of writing books or releasing books. We just had Derek Curlis release one of his latest books earlier this week. Jennifer Harshman is in the process of releasing a children's book. We've got a lot of people working on books here in our group, and I'm in the process of releasing my latest book. The book is called Build, Grow, and Monetize Your Online Platform. And it's a good-sized book. It gives my readers lots of information, lots of things that I would say are part of my proven formula, if I could use that phraseology, for sharing your message, for expanding your audience, for earning your income online, all the things that you hear me talk about if you listen to this podcast regularly or if you read the blog regularly that I have at platformlaunchers.com. If you've been checking those things out for any length of time, you hear me talk about this stuff all the time. And to be honest with you, it's actually a subject that I've become quite passionate about. It's something that I really enjoy. And so since I get so much joy out of it, I get excited when I have that opportunity to share this content with others. So I'm particularly excited to be able to release this in book form. So the book right now is being promoted on Amazon, and readers can download a free digital copy. So right now, as I'm recording this, it's February 21st, 2023. But if you check Amazon anytime between February 22nd and 26th of February of 2023, that book will be free. You'll be able to download the ebook of my latest book, Build, Grow, and Monetize Your Online Platform. You'll be able to download it for free. And earlier today, I wanted to announce that to my social media contacts. And what I want to do, and I'm just going to take a second here to read word for word what I posted on social media. And I want you to listen carefully for the three things that I just mentioned. Public speaker needs to be aware of, but also someone who's writing sales copy needs to be aware of. I want to see if you can pick up on the head, the heart, and the hands of what I posted. And I'm just going to read this verbatim, how I shared it on my social media. So it started off like this, and I had this part in all caps. It says, new book announcement. And then it says this: back in 2014, I sat down and attempted to figure out how to earn an income online. I knew if I could crack that code, it would be a blessing to my family and the ministries I care about, like our church. It took a few years, but I figured it out. If you want to know how, I'll tell you. I wrote it all down in my latest book, and starting tomorrow, I'm giving the book away for free. I'll let you know how to get a free paperback copy and ebook in about 24 hours. The book is 222 pages of specifics, but I broke it down into 44 actionable and easy to read chapters. If you're still trying to crack the code, just read it. See you tomorrow. So that's what I posted earlier on my social media, and it was fun. All throughout the day, I've been hearing nice words and comments and people that are getting excited about checking it out. But what did that announcement accomplish? You know, is that the type of announcement that if you saw that via social media, if you read that, is that type of announcement something that would have piqued your curiosity? And I can even ask this, after hearing that, or, you know, even if you just read that, Do you think you might consider downloading a copy of my book based on what I shared there? I'm asking that because I want to just spend a moment now breaking that post down just a little bit further so that we could identify where it speaks on purpose to the head and then to the heart and then to the hands of the reader. Again, I was trying to accomplish all three. I try to do that every time I speak, try to do that every time I teach. I try to do that every time I share sales copy. So let's just look at the head of that social media post. There are several places in that post or in that announcement that speak to the head. Right away, I was trying to turn heads with the statement that I was releasing a new book. So I put that in all caps right at the top of the post. And then if you look a little further down, I explained that I plan to teach readers that they can do exactly what I did when I share all the specifics of online platform development in the book. Then I also stressed that there are 44 easy to read chapters that are filled with information. So in my thinking, that's all content that speaks to the head. That's all head information, all information type things, data type things that can be processed that way. But now, again, think back to the post. Where in that post did I attempt to communicate to the heart? And by the way, when most people make a purchasing decision, most of the time they're not purchasing it with their head, and most of the time they're not purchasing it with their hands. They're actually purchasing it with their heart. So when you think about your sales copy, it very well may be able to be said that the heart is where you want to have your biggest emphasis. But in that post, I emphasized heart in a variety of ways. By the way, I often find it helpful to lead with the heart with a lot of the content that I create. If you kind of lead with the heart and then make sure to include the head and the hands as well, sometimes that can really help people connect with what you're saying. But I do that when I'm speaking. I do that often when I'm creating sales copy as well. But in that post, I shared something that was genuine and something that was very meaningful to me related to the process that I went through in 2014. I wanted to see, and I was very intent on this. This was something that, at that season of life, our finances didn't look anything like they look right now. And I was really trying to figure out how can things be better. And so in 2014, I was trying to see if there was a way I could improve our household finances. I wanted to bless my family. My wife and I, we've been blessed with 4 children. I just wanted to bless them. And I wanted to be able to be a blessing to my church as well. And so that was an emotional thing for me. That was something that really tugged at my heart. And so I included that in that post. I referenced that in that post. I also think in that post, I was communicating to the emotions when I attempted to ask people to relate to the fact that they might have a desire to earn an online income as well. I think most people can connect to how I was feeling in 2014 and still feel to this day. And I just wanted to invite others to kind of feel that, that the idea of, do you also want to earn an income online? Is that something you ever thought about? Would you like to have a little bit more free time? Would you like to improve your family's financial position, et cetera, et cetera? I was trying to communicate to the heart in addressing those kind of concepts in what I was communicating there. But then there's also a piece where I was trying to communicate to the hands. The action that I wanted readers to take was communicated in multiple ways. So one of the first pieces of action I wanted them to take was I wanted them to just simply get a free copy of the book. And then once they get the book, I hope they'll read it. And then I hope that they'll take the content and put it into practice to develop their online platform. And then eventually, if I'm really, really honest, I hope that they'll eventually leave a review, because if they actually take the time to leave a review, that's going to help other people discover the book. Because if anyone, if you know how Amazon's algorithm works, books with more reviews get boosted in their system, and then other eyes land on the product, and then people start purchasing it and utilizing it, and it helps that cycle to continue. So that was some of the action I wanted people to take. I want them to download it, read it, put it into practice, and then review it. Again, I have received, so I posted that, I don't know, it was before lunch sometime this morning. I posted that on my social media. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's 8:47 my time here on the East Coast, 8:47 p.m. And I have been receiving encouraging feedback all day long since I started sharing that post. And even though I'm about to give away that book for free for the next 5 days, one of my friends already blessed me by purchasing it. He just straight up bought it right away. So I'm just going to give him a shout out. Shout out to Jimmy Akers, who is the host of the Keep Breathing podcast, for actually being the first official sale of my new book. And he even sent me a screenshot of his purchase. So, Jimmy, if you're listening, it looks like you're going to have an actual physical copy of my new book in your hands almost a week before my author copies arrive in the mail. I found out when my author copies are arriving, and your screenshot shows that you're going to have your physical copy in the mail before I have it. And I wrote the book. So congrats to you, Jimmy Akers, host of the Keep Breathing podcast. Definitely check out his podcast. He does an awesome job. But all that to say, if you're looking to be helpful and if you're looking to communicate something that you're excited to share about with others, consider using the head, heart, hands metric that I mentioned in our episode today. Speak to the intellect, speak to the emotions, speak to the will of your audience. Or again, like I said, if it's easy to remember, communicate to the head, heart, and hands. It makes a huge difference. It makes your sales copy more interesting. It's not just data. It's not just emotion. It's not just action. It's all three. And likewise, use that metric if you're ever putting together a speech, if you're speaking publicly, if you're preaching a sermon, if you're communicating to a trade group, if you're doing something that you get invited to speak at a conference, whatever you're doing. If you're teaching online, use that metric, head, heart, and hands. Helps it not to be boring. It helps it to communicate to the whole person. And I would also say it helps what you're communicating to be rather memorable as well. Just those three words, just remember them: head, heart, and hands. It'll make your sales copy and your speaking that much more interesting. So before we wrap up this week, I just want to invite you, usually I have a call to action to head over to platformlaunchers.com. You're certainly welcome to do that. Lots of stuff we have over there. You're welcome to even take a test drive of our members club. I'd love for you to do that. But if you are so inclined, and if you're listening to this episode the week that I produce it, why don't you head over to Amazon this week and pick up a copy of my latest book, Building, Growing, and Monetizing Your Online Platform. The digital copy is free this week, and I hope you'll make use of it. Thanks again for being part of what we're doing here. Thanks for listening to our podcast, for checking us out on YouTube, for reading the blog, all those fun things. And we look forward to catching up with you again right here next time. Take care.